What is up guys, Rusty Gamer here. Today we're doing another quick dungeon guide. This time we're taking a look at the pirating menace that is Freehold. The dungeon is located at the bottom of Tirregard Sound and is available to Alliance players at level 110. When you start to engage the first mobs in Freehold, the first boss, Skycapn Kragg and Sharkbait will bombard you up until you reach them. They drop a sticky patch that slows and damages players standing in it, so try to avoid these gooey patches. From the start of the encounter up until reaching the first boss, there are a few mob packs, and they have one or two abilities. You will encounter the Untitled Crosshair. These guys like to poison the target, leaving a dot behind. The healer should dispel when able. The Untitled Kragg shot. They keep stationary and fire at range. They throw out a grenade dealing damage in an area on impact, so try to keep out of the grenade impact area. The Untitled Enforcer will cast a brutal backhand, a frontal cone attack that deals damage and knocks players away. We also have Untitled Mastiffs. They like to bite the target, dealing damage and slowing their movement speed. They can also enrage, increasing their damage done. Untitled Bonesaw have a healing cast called Healing Balm, which will heal one of their allies. Try to prioritize this mob for interrupts. They also apply a dot on the target, leaving the debuff that reduces healing received. When you clear the area, there will be a few mobs guarding the boss. After you defeated these trash mobs, you are ready to engage Skycapn Kragg and Sharkbait. Skycapn Kragg with his lovely parrot Sharkbait are a two-phase encounter. First, the Skycapn will engage the party mounted on Sharkbait. When he drops below 75% health, the fight moves to the second stage. Skycapn will dismount and attack the party while Sharkbait takes flight and harasses the players from above. In the first encounter, Skycapn uses two abilities. He will start to charge, charging towards a random enemy, dealing damage and knocking all players near that target. His second ability is Pistol Shots, which deals small bursts of damage and cannot be interrupted. In the second phase, he will dismount and will use a different set of abilities. He will face a random player and cast Azerite Powder Shot. This inflicts damage in a large cone faced at the target. Try to stay out of the cone to keep your healer from having to heal everybody at once. Skycapn will channel Revitalizing Brew. This takes 5 seconds and he will heal every second for an increased amount, so the longer he can channel this, the more he will heal. Interrupt this when you can. While all this is going on, Sharkbait flies above the player, dropping his Vile Bombardment, which slows and damage over time. Avoid these gooey puddles. On heroic difficulty, he will also cast Dive Bomb, where he will fly in a straight line, dealing damage and knocking players back. After Skycapn Kragg is defeated, Sharkbait will throw an insult at you and fly off, ending the first boss fight. Note that Sharkbait is a mount obtainable in Freehold on Mythic difficulty. He will drop at the final boss. The next step is to go over the Long Rope Bridge, and there you will encounter some new mobs. You have the Blacktooth Brutes. They have an Earthshaker ability, dealing damage and slowing players. The Coldwater Duelist has a charge ability that when cast will stun the players for 2 seconds in an area. The Iron-Tide Oarsman will cast T-Spout that will swirl underneath the player. It will detonate after a short delay and players will be flown high into the air, potentially falling to their deaths. The Bilgerat Padfoot will strike players, leaving a dot behind that damages every 3 seconds and reduces healing received. Coldwater Knife Juggler will cast Ricocheting Throw at random party members that deal damage and bounces to nearby players. Vermin Trappers will use the Rat Trap that deals damage and root players for 5 seconds. Shipwrats have a bite that reduces healing received by 10% and stacks. Lastly, we have the Blacktooth Knuckle Duster and Blacktooth Scrapper. The Knuckle Duster casts Shattering Bellow that deals damage and interrupts all players within 30 yards. The Scrapper will use Blind Rage on a random target, which increases their damage by 50% on that target. This rage debuff can be dispelled. Before we start the boss encounter, you have to make sure you are allied with a pirate crew. There are 3 crews and 3 ways of joining a crew. Doing this will make the next boss fight much easier, as you only have to fight 2 bosses instead of 3, and gain 1 as an ally during the fight. The easiest way is to pull the Blacktooth Knuckle Dusters that are fighting the training dummy. Kill them, plus the extra mobs that will join, and you are allied with Captain Raoul. If you don't ally yourself with a crew, the 3 bosses will gain the Under 1 banner buff, increasing their health and damage by 100%. Council of Captains have 3 bosses. After joining a crew, this should be reduced to 2 and you will gain an ally in this fight. Captain Jolly will frequently cast Cutting Surge. He will mark a location and after casting he will charge to that location and deal damage to all players near, by also giving a 12-second dot. When casting Whirlpool of Blades, he throws out spinning blades that deal nature damage to anyone near the blades. The blades will return to Captain Jolly, so dodge the blades. Captain Eduardo will frequently cast Powder Shot, dealing damage to a random player. Eduardo will also cast Grape Shot, having him jump to another location and fire multiple times, dealing damage in a large cone. Captain Raoul uses Blackout Barrel on a random player, throwing a barrel on his head and disorienting that player. The party should destroy the barrel as soon as possible. Raoul will also cast Barrel Smash to all in melee range, dealing damage and knocking players back. When you have an allied captain, they give you one of the following buffs. Captain Jolly will periodically buff the party with Trade Wind Vigor, increasing movement speed by 40% for 10 seconds. Captain Eduardo will cast Chain Shot to one of the other captains, stunning them for 6 seconds. And lastly, Captain Raoul will buff nearby players with Tapped Keg, increasing damage done by 15%. On heroic difficulty, the bartender will throw out beverages with benefits. These can be picked up by the player and the bosses, so watch the ground for them. After you defeated the Council of Captains, it's time to move on. Before we get to the Ring of Booty, there are some mob packs that we need to deal with first. Here we will encounter some old friends, plus a few new ones. The Iron-Tide Crusher used their Boulder Throw to stun and damage players. Watch out for the area of impact. He will also cast Ground Shatter that will damage players and knock them back. Cutwater Harpooners will cast Dragging Harpoon at random players, damaging and dragging the players towards them. The combo of the Dragging Harpoon with the Crusher's Ground Shatter is a potential deadly one. After we cleared the trash mobs up leading to the arena, we can start the next encounter. The Ring of Booty is a 3-phase encounter with 2 bosses. After an introduction of the goblin, the party has to catch a pig named Lightning. Lightning will run around the arena at a fast pace. Click on the pig to catch it. Once Lightning is caught, we move on to the next phase. In this phase, we need to fight Ludwig von Tortelen. Ludwig uses the Shell Bounce ability. He releases a spinning shell in the arena, bouncing back and forth. Players should try and avoid these shells. The final boss is the Ogre Trotag. Trotag will hit a random player with his Ripper Punch, doing damage and inflicting a bleed effect. Trotag will throw sharks at random players, dealing damage on impact and chasing the closest player. Trotag will also cast Sharknado, spinning around dealing heavy damage to players caught in melee range. When using Sharknado, it is best to keep your distance. The shark he throws will chase players and they will bounce from one player to another, damaging each time they bounce, so try and kite these away from the group. The sharks will stay until Rotrag casts Rearm. He will charge at the shark, picking it up and dealing damage to anyone caught in the charge. On heroic difficulty, the sharks are much faster. The speedy sharks can be kited in jump patches that spawn on the ground, which reduces the shark movement speed by 50%. After you've slain Rotrag and conquered the Ring of Booty, the final boss awaits you. The final Trash Mob pack have a few new surprises, like the Iron-Tide Officers. They are mounted and will cast Oil Blade on the tank, dealing magic damage and reduces healing received by 75% for 8 seconds. Healers should quickly dispel this. The Iron-Tide Ravagers have a 4-second cast Painful Motivation. This will buff all enemies nearby with a 45% damage increase. Iron-Tide Stormcarls cast Lightning Bolt and will channel Thundering Squall. This 12-second channel dealing high damage every 2 seconds should be interrupted. Iron-Tide Buccaneers have Blade Barrage, dealing high damage to all nearby players over 5 seconds. This should be avoided as the Buccaneers remain stationary while channeling this spell. And once all the trash is cleared, you can go and engage the final boss of this dungeon, Harlan Sweete. Harlan Sweete is a dangerous one, using more powerful abilities when he loses health. He will cast Cannon Barrage on a random target. This 3-second debuff will have players spawn swirly circles underneath them every 0.8 seconds, which will explode after 1.5 seconds, dealing damage and applying flaming shrapnel, causing fire damage to all players in the circle. The exploded circle will leave fiery debris that lasts for 5 minutes, dealing damage to anyone standing in it. He will also cast Swift Saber that spawns 3 blades that will travel around the area dealing damage and knocking players when hit. Ads will spawn near the gold piles. These Iron Tie Grenadiers will target a random enemy and chase them down. When the target is reached, they will explode, dealing high damage to the target and anyone nearby. At 60% health, Harlan gains Loaded Dice All Hands, which causes his abilities to target additional players. Cannon Barrage will now be applied to all players except for the tank, and his Swift Saber will spawn an additional blade. At 30% health, Harlan Sweete gets Loaded Dice Manowar, gaining 100% attack speed. His abilities will be cast more frequent, but he will take 100% increased damage. After Harlan Sweete has been slain, you have finished the Freehold dungeon. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, please comment, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next dungeon guide.